So here we are. It's 10:30ish, Thursday, the 20th of July, 2023, and I'm doing one of my thinking out loud, kind of musing short films, which may never see light of day, as I often say, but then publish them because they probably aren't that pertinent immediately, but they soon will be, because I feel I've entered the final 48 hours of a 3-year book writing project, and I'm closing the book down in conclusion, and as part of that, thinking out loud as much to myself by way of keeping this thought, this line of thought and query going. So the book's not necessarily about me supplying all the answers. The book's about asking the right questions so that my readers do so. So this morning, having dropped my son off at school at a summer club, I drove the car on a little run because I was intrigued by a radio show on BBC Radio 4 about the ping pong diplomacy that took shape in the, I think it was 60s, 70s, where American table tennis team visited China in a very, very different world order than we are experiencing today. So that was quite interesting, how the orthodoxy of and the ideology of the Chinese culture had steadfastly played a rigid form of ping pong for decades, who knows how long. But then, following the visit of the American team and the gradual opening up of the Chinese borders and the advances in technology, such as glue making and materials used to produce table tennis bats, there was a groundswell of innovation and advances in techniques occurred. So no longer holding the table tennis bat with a pencil style grip, it was opened with a handshake grip, and it was just I think it was the Swedes who wiped the floor with the Chinese. So that was interesting. That kind of really pricked my curiosity, and as somebody who's a lover of sport, I was sort of hyper intrigued by that story. Then it moved on to the next story, and I'm probably going to have to try and look it up because it was all about the infinity of curves, and I found that, unfortunately, I had to leave the car because it was time to get on with my morning. But this program was called In the Loop. It started to play a strange loop, and it's a circle has no beginning and no end. It represents rebirth and regeneration, continuity and infinity. From wedding rings to stone circles in poetry, music, and the trajectories of the planets themselves, circles and loops are embedded in our imaginations. Poet Paul Farley goes walking in circles in 5 very different loopy locations. He visits a stone circle, a roundabout, a roller coaster, to ask why human beings find rings and circles so symbolic. So one of the visual metaphors that I conjured up in my brain was the program starts with monks walking upstairs in a monastery according to this amazing architecture, which sounded like what they were doing was they were walking up 4 flights of stairs, and on leaving the 4th staircase, they were at the beginning of the 1st staircase. So that's enough to kind of seed query and challenge. And then it ended up with a shepherd's loop, which was a loop of constantly ascending sound, which also challenged my ability to comprehend the implications. So stepping away from all of that, I came home, talked to my wife Karen, and tried to seed the thoughts of where this input was sending me, because it clearly has been sent me in hot pursuit of a new idea. But just before I go into that new idea, what I also found was that there's all of this controversy at the moment about OpenAI, ChatGPT, Google's Bard, and all of these other prolific, infinitesimally powerful artificial intelligence products, and the dangers posed by their aggregation and harvesting of pre-existing intellectual property and creative copyright by users, by producers and creators such as myself. And I don't believe we actually need them. I'll be honest with you. I think we need them for breast cancer screening, and we need artificial intelligence's power for doing good in domains that serve the good of humanity. What I don't think we need AI for is creative AI, because it's stripping away the ability for any person or creator or producer of original work to extract a livelihood, producing a livelihood, perpetuating a livelihood. So keeping my chain of thought going, obviously I realized that human beings are aggregators of other people's knowledge. My bookshelves are full of other people's products, creative material that's resulted from in turn from them absorbing knowledge from other people. So the next segue is singularly focused on sustainability. And I'm afraid I do challenge the American culture in part of my book. Not that I have any problem with America. Some of my greatest friends live there, or were born there. I visit there, have visited there frequently. I love America. I think it's an exciting country. It's a melting pot of cultures, and that's great. But also there's a ruthlessness and a brutality and a kind of barbarism. There's a fundamentalism in the United States. They have by far and away the highest rate of death by gun crime. There's parts of the American way of living that I can't understand. There's this Christian fundamentalism, this creationism I don't understand. There's this ravenous belief, I would argue delusion, that every single field of human life has to be capitalized upon. Their lawyers have created a culture of legal conflict where, personal injury claims are now an international industry. They have gender reassignment is now an industry, whether it's good for the subject, the patient, or not. They produce food on an industrial scale, which not just is not good for, not fit for consumption, it's toxic. It's arguably kills people. We have an epidemic of obesity with supersizing portions of food in pursuit of profit. There's all sorts of other ways in which there's this expectation that we take a service or a good or whatever the product might be that we're seeking to capitalize upon, and that there has to be a margin gain, there has to be a profit margin, there has to be an incremental increase, there has to be some form of return on investment. And without that, 5%, 10%, year on, day on, week on, month on, year on, decade on, these seismic strides that advances in growth. And the upshot of all of that is it's unsustainable. It's fundamentally, elementally immoral to think that every act of living commercially has got to be a gain where we gain advantage to such an effect on the recipient of that good. So my book challenges the polarity of the way that culture is, north and south polarity, the yin and yang of doing business. I am a corporativist. I do believe in egalitarianism and altruism. I believe in fairness and equality and all of these things. I think it's ironic that sometimes in the name of equality, people produce inequality on such a scale. And I think the prism through which we exchange any energy, be that monetary, be that emotional, be that financial or otherwise, any form of exchange of energy, doesn't have to be done with this ravenous capitalist motivation. I don't agree with socialism, by the way. I think that's a proven failed model. I instantly jump to the visualization of one guy digging the hole in the road and 10 guys looking on. That's communism for me. That doesn't work. There is no meritocracy. There's fear. It breeds fear. It breeds suspicion. Not everybody carries the responsibility in equal measure. There's no real positive feedback loop in socialism that actually works. So you've got, on the right, you've got capitalism. On the left, you've got socialism. And I argue that we should triangulate away from those two, and the top of the food chain in terms of fairness and equality and meritocratic effort is cooperativism, because if we all have a stake and we all benefit, then there's a greater chance that we will all experience the goodness, the benefit. And It's to do with the filter, these filters, these language prisms, these language models, large or otherwise, that I am striving to understand better, to challenge, and to improve. That's what this is about. It's about improvement. Improvement is not necessarily an infinite extrapolation of gain. That where we're at, we are made to feel hungry, and the only way that we can quell our thirst or hunger is to gain something like an expensive drink. You know, £2.30 for a can of Prime. You know, the big flavour of the day, the big fashion trend of the moment is young people can't get their hands on this new drink. It's insane to think happiness can exist in a can of soft drink, sugary, you know, stimulant full soft drinks. That's just a rank example. I could have picked many better ones, I'm sure. But I have a son, he's 6. I'm very nearly 60. I didn't write this book because I'm a writer. I wrote this book because it needed to be written. It was the book that I felt wasn't available as a solution to this global epidemic of frenzied commercial dissatisfaction. We're being sold unhappiness. We're being made to feel like we aren't enough, and that the only way we're going to be enough is to spend some money on some inane product, you know, like a £5,000 Louis Vuitton handbag, like, you know, 2 pairs of trainers out the same factory. One's $1,000 because it's got Kanye's name on it, and exactly the same shoe, which has just got 3 stripes of Adidas on it, sells for $70. That's just crazy. We're doing ourselves down here. There's far more to life by being centered, that until such time as we love this, we're never going to be satisfied. We can't bolt on goods and services and foibles and blingy little products that sparkle to create happiness. We have to be able to look at this person in the mirror, as I'm looking into my mobile phone here making this short film, and we have to be satisfied. We have to find love in our own heart before we can ever seek love external to that. It's prerequisite. There's a loop. There's this, I'm just trying to bring my laptop back to life here. There's this this strange loop, this infinite loop that goes round and around and around and around and around, and we're part of it. But if we delude ourselves that it's aspiration is material, that we have to gain products, services, goods to be happy, then we are living in self-deceit. We're living in denial. We're pursuing emptiness. Like I say, I'm not sure this is ever going to see light of day, but when you read the book, you'll get my point. Thank you. Peace and purpose.